We're bringing you boots on the ground insight from the ranchers, conservationists, and partners who are helping to preserve the best of the Golden State for generations to come. Join the California Rangeland Trust for inspiring stories of resilience, innovation, and hope as we get tuned into the land.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tune Into the Land. I am your host and CEO of the California Rangeland Trust, Michael Delbar. Here on California's rangelands, we talk a lot about stewardship and the importance of caring for the land so that it can continue to provide for the generations to come. But sometimes that same land gives something back to us: peace, perspective, and a place to heal. This month, as we pause to honor the men and women who have served our nation on Veterans Day, we're reminded that coming home can be one of the toughest battles they'll ever face. That's where Mighty Oaks Foundation steps in. Founded by Chad Robichaux, a former Force Recon Marine and veteran advocate, the organization helps warriors find hope and restoration through faith, brotherhood, and connection, all grounded in the healing power of the land. Since 2011, Mighty Oaks has partnered with ranches across the country, including the conserved Sky Rose Ranch, owned by businessman, rancher, and philanthropist B. Wayne Hughes Jr. The ranch is in the Central Coast of California, and it hosts week-long programs that help men and women rediscover purpose and healing through the time spent on the land. I recently sat down with Chad, who shares openly about his personal journey, including the emotional challenges he faced after military service and the weight of living with PTSD. His story is raw and honest, and though it reflects some very dark moments, heads up to our listeners that there are parts of this conversation that get heavy. It also reminds us of the profound impact that support, community, faith, and time spent on the land can have in helping people find their way back to hope. Because when we care for the land, it has a remarkable way of caring for us in return. With that, it is my honor to bring you my conversation with Chad. I'd like to welcome Mr. Chad Robichaux to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today, Chad.
Thanks for having me on. And I'm really excited to talk about this because Sky Rose Ranch has been a huge blessing to me and the thousands of men and women that have come to Mighty Oaks who served our country and served our communities. And Wayne Hughes always says that place has an open door to heaven right above it. And I've just watched so many lives transformed and there. So to talk about it and get to showcase it, I'm grateful that you guys would do this.
Well, we're honored to have you do that because it's definitely a gem in our portfolio as well. Something we're very proud of, not only the ranch, but what Wayne and you have been able to do with this program. So why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about who you are, your service, and how that has led into this type of a program?
Yes. So Mighty Oaks is I think one of the best types of nonprofits or veteran service organizations, ministries, models that you could have. It's a pay it forward model. It started with one person that fell in their face and someone came and lifted them up and they turned around and helped the next guy, and that guy helped the next guy, and that guy helped the next guy, and so on and so forth. That has happened for 15 years and over 500,000 people now. And so, a big part of that wasn't Sky Rose Ranch, but all of the work that began at Mighty Oaks began me being that first guy that fell on his face. And I come from a long history of military. My family has served since in every war since World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. My father was the first Marine in our family in Vietnam. I served in special operations as a Force Reconnaissance Marine and as a DoD contractor in a JSOC task force, Joint Special Operations Command, serving with one of our premier Tier 1 Special Operations units. Both my sons served as Marines. My oldest son, Hunter, is also an Anglico Marine who served in Afghanistan, so we served in the same war. And I myself did 8 deployments to Afghanistan. And so for me, going into the military was something I had wanted to do since I was a young kid, 13 years old. And joining at 17 years old, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in special operations and the Marine Corps. That route would have been Marine Reconnaissance, eventually Marines Force Recon. And then after the attacks in September 11th, which at that time I'd already been in almost 10 years. So I was a very seasoned operator who had 10 years of special operations training and experience. I I was a sergeant at the time at 3rd Force Reconnaissance, and I was a military freefall parachutist team leader. So I remember watching when those, planes hit the World Trade Center buildings, like because of my job, I knew like immediately, I'm like, my life just changed. Like the whole world just changed and my life's going to be very different moving forward. And, and I could tell you that at the time, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, we're going to war. Like everyone in the military at the time was, especially in my community, was like, hey, sir, like, let's go do this. The military was a very patriotic and motivated moment in the military to where we felt we had to come together and right that wrong that happened on September 11th, 2001. And everyone was eager to go. And when you're in the military, especially in a special operations unit, the assumption is that everyone's going, right? But that's just not how it works. We have a large military. The United States is a large, very powerful military that's strategically placed and deployed around the world. And so when something like that happens, it's a fraction of the military that's going to go engage in that. So we have the ability to continue to protect ourselves around the world and protect others around the world. And so not everyone got to go at first. And so I remember for that, since September 2001 till I actually got to go in 2003, I was just chomping at the bit to get to deploy. And eventually I got the chance to try out for this JSOC task force. For those that don't know what JSOC is, I mentioned earlier, Joint Special Operations Command is where all of the Tier 1 Special Operations units reside in our military. Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, Task Force Orange. That's where those units are. And so I got a DoD contract to go there. And I did 8 consecutive deployments to Afghanistan in that unit as a AFO, Advanced Force Operator, essentially working, best way to describe it, kind of working undercover to go ahead of our unit to do all the clandestine logistics to get our assaulters on target to capture and kill bad guys. And those 8 deployments were incredible opportunity to serve in that capacity. We had some huge successes and also some real hard losses. And it took a big toll on me personally that I ended up carrying home. And then, over that time, I buried 15 friends. I ended up we had a compromise in our operation. If you imagine it being this undercover type operation, it's compromise in our operation. We ended up having a vehicle bomb driven in our home to kill me and our team, which everyone survived this. And then I was in a neighboring country, which I can't say which one because the Pentagon redacted in my book, Saving Aziz, but I was in a neighboring country to Afghanistan and abducted by the Foreign Intelligence Agency. I'll say all that to say a lot of things went really bad, really fast in our operation. A lot of pressure on me. Towards the end of that time, I had what I would have identified at the time like a nervous breakdown, especially living and operating by myself as a singleton. And I came home and was diagnosed with PTSD or severe chronic PTSD. I was dealing with debilitating panic attacks, anxiety, depression, and spent about 3 years in a really kind of dark downward spiral. And during that time, I actually had to jump from the military into a sport because I had done martial arts my whole life. I was already a professional MMA fighter on the side, bivocationally while I was in the military. Because it was, I've been grappling for 45 years. So it's at that time not, but right now so it's like a lifelong thing. And so I just dove on those mats to cope and recover. But I just really, like some people go into alcohol, some people go into drugs. I went into that to recover and I didn't get well. The level of panic attacks I was dealing with is very hard to describe unless someone's experienced it before. Like you literally believe you're going to die in that moment. And the medicine they gave me made me feel like either like a zombie or I was being poisoned. So I hated the medicine. And I was dealing with shame because I was so ashamed that I couldn't do my job anymore. And so those mats and training and jiu-jitsu and fighting professionally again, it was a really great place for me to hide. And so I spent about 3 years in that environment, never getting well. But on the surface, it would look like I was fine because I was winning fights. I ended up being 18-2 as a professional fighter. I ended up being ranked number 6 in the world. I won a world title. I had opened a martial arts school. So people would have thought I recovered and transitioned well. But I was really just kind of like heading like a train going towards a brick wall without any brakes. Like eventually it was going to crash and it did. And in 2010, I separated from my family and and I was really back to dealing with panic attacks and anxiety and depression. Had this huge fight on Showtime, an event called Strike Force. It was the number 2 show in the world at the time. And after I won that fight, I went back to my apartment by myself, and this thought came over me that maybe my family would be sad without me, but they would be better off. And, in that same, if you guys don't know, Michael, that same hopeless thought finds a home in the hearts of over 20 of our warriors every single day. Like maybe my family, my friends, my loved ones would be sad without me, but they'll be better off. And that's the thought I believed. And by the way, I say over 20 a day. At the time, that was 23 a day. The current VA statistics say 17, but they don't count jumps, car crashes, or overdoses, which most veterans take their lives from overdoses, car crashes, and jumps. So we don't know what the number really is. Only 50% of the coroners report. Some other independent reports say 50 a day. I don't know if it's 1. I don't know if it's 17, 22, or 50. I just know 1 is too many. And at that moment, I had made the decision, and I had a Glock 22 pistol, a 40 caliber pistol. And I would sit in my closet in my apartment. I literally put my family pictures on the floor around me, and I put the gun to my head to end my life. And when I would do that, I had this kind of thought that would come over me, like, who is going to find me? Because someone's going to find you. Like, my oldest son was the only one that had a key to my apartment. And the thought of him finding me, that was enough to pump the brakes. But I was in such a dark place to be back there trying to do that again. And so there was this one morning, I was in that closet, I had that pistol, and heard a knock on my door, and I wasn't going to answer it. But when I heard my wife, Kathy's voice announce herself, I panicked. She wasn't supposed to be there. She wasn't invited to be there. It's my apartment. And I don't know why I did this. I think it just only indicates the level of shame I was in. I was in my closet. She would never came in my closet. She would never came in my apartment. But I hid that pistol under a blanket before I went to answer the door. And I ran to that door. It sounds kind of twisted, but I was so mad that she interrupted me killing myself. And I just laid into her, trying to get her to leave. Usually I'm a pretty calm arguer. She's usually the other way. She's not so calm. But in that moment, she was super calm, really poised, and she just wouldn't leave. I just wanted her to leave, and she wouldn't. And in the middle of this argument, she asked me a question that, radically changed my life and probably saved my life. She's like, how could you do everything that you've done? She witnessed me become a recon. We met when we were 17 and 18 years old. So she saw me become a recon Marine, go through all this training, these schools, train for MMA fights. She saw this tremendous amount of professional discipline in my life. She's like, how could you do all of those things, but when it comes to your family, you'll quit? And there's no more soul-cutting word to me than to be called the quitter. And she was right. I've been successful at professional things, but when it came to the most important things, like being a husband, being a father, being a young 17-year-old kid that raised his hand and made a commitment to do something important. I quit all those things, including my will to live. And so I'm a pretty radical decision maker. And in that moment, I made a decision to get back in the fight. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I couldn't do it alone. And at that time, I had really surrounded myself by everyone that told me what I wanted to hear and not what I needed to hear. And that I knew I needed some accountability outside of my circle. She had been going to this church. And I didn't care about God, or I didn't care about her church. I just want someone outside of my circle. So I asked her, I said, can you connect me with some man in this church to help me go through this process of trying to pull things back together? And I met with this man named Steve. And Steve was not an MMA fighter, a military guy. He was a small business owner that happened to be on call at the church as an elder. I met him at a Starbucks coffee shop, and I wrote this really good plan of how I was going to fix my life. I was super impressed by it. It was really good. And I slid it over to him and showed it so he would tell my wife. And he looked at that plan and didn't even read it. And he told me I was going to fall back on my face. And I was really offended because he didn't look at it. And he said, this plan, I remember he tapped on the paper, and as he looked at me, he tapped on the paper. He said, this plan doesn't have anything to do with your relationship with God. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to let you waste mine. We have a saying at Mighty Oaks Foundation that kind of came from this moment with Steve. If what you're doing isn't working, then why not try something different? Right? I tried everything. I tried medication, counseling, all these therapy programs, these get self-help programs. I had professional success, financial success. I was fighting on television. I was ranked number 6 in the world. I had all the egotistic, all the bravado, all these. Some of those things are good. Some of those things are bad, but none of those things had changed my situation. And it was back to the saying, right? If what you're doing is working, why not try something different? So I decided to trust this man, Steve. I tried everything. I was into my rope, and I was what do I have to lose? So I gave God a chance, surrendered my life to Christ, became a Christian. And beyond that decision, Steve mentored me for an entire year in biblical living. And what that did for me was pretty profound, because I had always heard that, life doesn't come with a handbook. And in fact, it actually does. We just don't read it. And by reading this handbook and having a mentor that kind of guide me through it, I realized that all these bad things that happened to me, Afghanistan, my childhood, I didn't even get into some, I gave you really scratched the surface of some things in my life, but all these bad things, as bad as those things were, those things that lead me to be in that closet with a pistol in my hand would lead me there with the choices I made in response to those things. And I had just been making bad choices. So had I made better choices in response to the bad things that happened to me, I'd be in a different situation. And if I made better choices moving forward from the things I'm facing in advance that ahead of me, I'll end up in a better situation. So it became I'm kind of black and white. It became pretty pragmatic to me that I have this model now to make good choices. And I became very intentional about it and overcoming past stuff and then moving forward. And that deliberateness and intentionality brought restoration in my life. It gave me hope again for the first time ever. And then it reignited a purpose in me. And purpose is very important to us, especially guys that served in the military. I think it's one of the primary things that people struggle with. It's not what they've seen or did, but being important, having a mission, having a purpose, and then one day that's gone. And so a new purpose was lit inside of me, and it manifested in the founding of Mighty Oaks Foundation. I just had this burning desire inside of me, not just to get well, but to pay it forward. It was like if Steve Toth gave me the cure to cancer, I'm dying of cancer, and Steve gave me the cure to cancer. I can't keep that to myself. I have to share it. So he gave me what I felt was the solution to dealing with PTSD and trauma and anxiety and depression and suicide ideation, all these things I was dealing with. He gave me this solution, and I felt obligated to share it. And so that began Mighty Oaks Foundation, which was 15 years ago. And, a big part of that is Sky Rose. I can get into that, but that's how Mighty Oaks Foundation essentially began.
Why Mighty Oaks? How did you come up with that name? What does that signify to you?
Well, Mighty Oaks is from a scripture in the Bible, Isaiah 61:3. It talks about a nation or a group of people, like a society, right? It talks about this group of people that are burned down to the ashes, and God calls them to be raised up and to become mighty oaks of righteousness and a blessing to God. So it talks about them being leaders of leaders and generational builders. It talks about the discipleship. So when I felt called to start Mighty Oaks, there was a scripture that, and a long story how it popped up, but the scripture Isaiah popped up to me, and I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do, and this is how I'm supposed to do it. I'm not just supposed to go help people, but I'm supposed to teach them how to do it as well. That's the Bible calls this discipleship, right? I'm supposed to equip them to be in a position to help others and empower them to be able to do that. I think many people especially in our culture in America, fall into this victim mentality and are looking for this socialistic programs or socialistic ideas of receiving people feeling entitled to help. And the veteran community is no different, right? I served my country, I lost my youth, I lost my sanity, I lost my heart, I lost my soul, I lost my legs, I lost my friends. I'm entitled to some things. And I'm not for veterans not getting benefits. I think they should get every benefit that they've earned. I'm all for that. But when someone serves their country, voluntarily, by the way, because we're in a volunteer military right now, and they go do exactly what they volunteered to do, and they come home and have hardships, they should be helped to move forward. But what I'm not okay with is that veteran going home and taking off the uniform and putting up their couch and being a social dependent for the rest of their life, because it not only hurts them and takes away their ability to get the most out of their own life, but hurts our culture and our community, because there is no one better in our culture community to go home and lead in their homes and their communities and their churches and their states and our nation than those who have that 0.5% of our nation who has the willingness to have served and then had the experiences and wisdom gained from seeing true oppression. Because I believe through having experiences, especially an experience of war, it builds a compassion that you can't get any other unless you see the type of things that they see. And so it robs our country of those things. So I am a believer that every veteran that serves should get their things they're entitled to and have earned, but they should never be okay with sitting back and being a victim the rest of their life. And so for me, the first time you talk about Skyros Ranch, the first thing those guys hear when they get there is, welcome here. We love you. We thank you for your service. Okay, we're done with that. Like, thank you for your service. Now we're going to talk about you, and you take a responsibility for your life moving forward, because you have a responsibility outside that uniform to lead again, to lead your homes and your communities in this nation. You have a responsibility to lead again. It's not okay for you to be a victim. People count on you. And you're not just here at this ranch to get well. You're here to be in a position to help the next guy. And they're told that from the very first day. They think they're coming here to get well. That's just a small step. Getting well is the foundation, right? They need to be challenged to help the next guy, to be part of the process and discipled in that. And we have that. That's why I built into the DNA of Mighty Oaks is this leadership and discipleship training. And that was a big part of the things that Wayne Hughes and I aligned with when starting Mighty Oaks. And the foundation of Mighty Oaks was that. And so for me, being the first person, it wasn't okay that Steve Toth lead me to get well. It meant that I had to pay that forward. And that's what I've been doing for 15 years since. And I mean, it's a really big part of like that process for me was really discovering what I believe is not only who I am, but who I was created to be, and why I was allowed to go through those experiences to equip me to be able to do that well and to be received by those guys. Those guys will receive what I have to say because of the experiences I have. So I believe God didn't put me through those experiences, but I believe he allowed me to endure some of those things so I'd be more equipped to be able to help them. And Mark Twain has one of my favorite quotes. It says the two most important days in a person's life are the day they're born and the day they find out why. And I believe when Steve Toth introduced me to this concept of discipleship and paying it forward, and that new purpose was ignited in me, it was the why. And there's a why for a lot of things. I feel like my life has been committed to that ever since, and it will be for the rest of my life. This is what I feel committed to and called to do. And so, in building Mighty Oaks, we're, when you build a new organization, grassroots, by the way, we didn't meet, Wayne's a very philanthropic and capable individual, right? You guys know that. I didn't meet him from day one. Like when I started Mighty Oaks, it was a complete leap of faith. It wasn't like, hey, it'd be a great idea to start this veterans nonprofit. We have all these donors. And no, I like literally walked away from everything. I was at the peak of my professional fighting career. I was ranked in the top 10 in the world. I had a very successful martial arts school with over 1,000 students. I literally walked away from everything overnight and stepped out in the water, hoping something was to be under my feet because I felt burdened to do this with no safety nets. We didn't know how I was going to buy groceries next week, much less for my wife and kids, much less run an organization. So the first 2 years of Mighty Oaks was just completely by faith and believing something was going to happen. And really that first year of Mighty Oaks, nothing really happened except me getting pulled away from all the things that I was doing and finally healing myself and my family. That was the first year of Mighty Oaks. And then the second year was starting to figure out how we're going to do it. And then I was working with an organization called the Reaver Foundation, and they had received a call from the office of Wayne Hughes Jr. And one of his people that worked for him called and said, hey, there's a man named Wayne Hughes Jr. He's a individual, of a lot of means, and he wants to support veterans. And he has a ranch in California called Skyros Ranch. And it's in the address they told us at the time was Paso Robles, which means Path of the Oaks. And we're like, hey, we're the Oaks. We're the Mighty Oaks. This is the Path of the Oaks. Like, let's go check it out. And at that time, I was already getting a little jaded. People in nonprofit space probably know this. I was already getting a little jaded and scared because people with a lot of money say all these big things and then they have their motivations. But some of the least generous people in the world are people with a lot of means. And so I'm like, man, we were really busy. But I'm like, something just told me, let's go. And so we flew there and met with Mr. Wayne. And we sat on a picnic table in the middle of Skyros Ranch. There was some black Angus cattle out there. He had lunch brought up to us. And so we're eating some sandwiches. And he's asking me the same thing you're asking me now. Why Mighty Oaks? What's your vision? What's different about this than other veterans programs? Is it enabling, right? Or are you guys just going to bake some cookies, want to take them hunting, riding horses? All those things are good. Like doing gifts for veterans are good. We love cookies and we love going hunting and stuff like that. But is it going to just be that or is it going to be something that's going to equip them to have impactful, sustaining change? And will they do something good with it for others? And so we immediately realized we're aligned in that empowering versus enabling, that challenging versus gifting. Thank you for your service. Yeah, but what you're going to do now with it? We aligned in that. So we had this conversation at the picnic table, and he had God had put it in his heart to do exactly what I was doing. He said, he pointed over the hill and he's like, you see that old kind of ranch house there, which is now the lodge. He goes, if I build this out, will you bring your program here? And I said, let me pray about it. Amen. About that fast. And he pulled out a napkin. He wrote a little promissory note in the back of a napkin right on that picnic table on Sky Rose Ranch. And within about 10 months later, I'll never forget this because I'm so grateful for Wayne. People talk a lot. About 10 months later, that place was built. And I flew there with another 4th Recon Marine named Travis Cox, 4th Recon sniper and combat veteran. The two of us flew there with Wayne and some of his staff. And when there were still studs in the building and some sheetrock in some place on the wall and concrete floors, we went through that thing and spent the whole day writing scripture on studs and concrete and sheetrock before they put the finishes on. That'll still be there today. It'll be there forever. And they sealed that thing up and made it pretty. And I remember as they were finishing it out, Wayne said, I don't want anything in this building that wouldn't be the level I have in my home. Because when these veterans come here, I need the walls to come down through hospitality. Wayne's like, you could do what you do at Mighty Oaks, the peer-to-peer level, but I could do hospitality. And so it's always been the mentality that when a veteran, first responder gets to Sky Rose Ranch, they will immediately be welcomed with such a open heart of hospitality and service that they're going to be just taken back with like, wow, someone would do this for me. Give me a pottery-born linen on my bed, like a pillow that I never slept on a pillow this nice before, like eating off a plate and with a utensil that's like the highest quality. The steak that they get in the first night that's grown on Sky Rose Ranch by the Black Angus cattle that graze the land there, and the Kenny, the chef there, and the hospitality. Like what that does is not just pampering to them. What it does is any bit of reservation or guard they come there with, those walls are just shattered down, and we're able to do our job. And God's able to come in and work in their hearts because that hospitality that Sky Rose Ranch provides an environment of being unplugged, cell service doesn't work, in God's nature and creation, on the center of that ranch, which sits up on the top of that beautiful hill. Like it just creates an environment that does what, cliche, but that's what we say we do at Mighty Oaks. We save lives, we restore families, and we change legacies for eternity. And the environment is such a crucial part in that. And Wayne knew that from the beginning. I didn't know that, by the way. I knew I had this really good program and strategy, but I didn't know about that piece. And so that's why we're such partners in this. He knew that. And it was a blind spot that I had that looking back is essential in our methodology at Mighty Oaks and has replicated itself in other locations we use. But it's why Sky Rose is our flagship location.
That ranch is amazing. And
yeah, it's crazy.
As you sat there having that lunch with him, I can picture that, having spent quite a bit of time on the Sky Rose, that as you look around and you're seeing the Mighty Oaks on the land, and that environment just changes a person. So I totally understand and can see where Wayne's ability to transform the house into a lodge and create an environment that is so comfortable and welcoming to those participating in the program. I mean, what a way to start. I mean, it's that connection to that open space, the critters running around, the birds flying, the deer running through the fields. It's just
even those nasty Pacific vipers.
Yeah. So, Chad, take us now to explain what the legacy program format. You're bringing these folks in. They're in there for 5 to 6 day program. Kind of tell us about how that program works.
Yeah. So first of all, I'll say we do 4 things at Mighty Oaks. We do the resiliency program, which is me going base around the world and speaking on resiliency and spiritual resiliency as an inoculation effort to keep people from ending up at Skyros, right? If we, on the front end, given the right tools, then we should be preventative about some of this stuff. And so we have that effort. We have the recovery effort, which is the legacy program that operates on the ranches like we do. We have the advocacy program, which is taking the successes on the ranches and the statistics that we have and going to the Capitol. And I've testified before Congress. I've served on President Trump's as a chairman of President Trump's White House Coalition for Veteran Affairs and for faith-based care. We've got executive order signs. We've done all those things. We did those things because of the successes that we've had at the ranches and statistical data that we have for faith-based programs. And then we have an international effort where we go around the world and help replicate these programs to our foreign allies around the world. And most of those are through our alumni who comes out of the ranches. So I say all that to say that the ranch and what we do at the legacy program is our center stone piece. It's the core of what we do. If everything else went away and we had to downsize or whatever, that would be what we still do. And it is a peer-to-peer, non-clinical, faith-based, like life alignment session. And during that time, what we really do in that 5 to 6 days, we call it 6 days, is really having an intervention and then teaching them how to use this process and team moving forward. So a lot happens in 6 days, but it doesn't end in 6 days. They learn how to use the Mighty Oak system during the 6 days and move forward. So it's a really very intensive intervention. And so when they get there, they will be given a peer-to-peer testimony of someone that's been there before them, understanding, kind of demonstrate the vulnerability and transparency that's expected there, and talking and letting them know that they are on a peer level. Like the stuff that they're dealing with, as unique as it may feel to them, every struggle that every man faces in the heart of every other man, right? Stu Weber says that. And most of us think that our struggles are unique. Nothing's new under the sun. We all deal with the same kind of stuff in different ways. So we kind of demonstrate that from day one. And then they're broken into teams. And those teams comprise of about 20 guys. I'm speaking at Skyros numbers wise. About 20 of those people will be there for their first time. They're essentially the students. And then about 5 of them are there a second time doing the discipleship process, getting trained to participate and pay it forward. Those 25 people are put into 4 teams. And those team leaders that run those teams are guys who graduated our leadership program, but once were students. And so these teams throughout the week, they go through 14 modules of classes. And those classes really, you might think they're dealing with like PTSD. There's one class on PTSD. What they're really dealing with is biblical living. How do you manage your time? How do you manage your family? How do you manage money? What are things you deal with in your everyday life that you can maybe make poor decisions with that PTSD anxiety will exacerbate, right? So for example, like you might think, what's manage your time have to do with PTSD? We call that class margin. How much margin you have left over in your day. So if you're putting 26 hours in a 24-hour day and you're diagnosed with PTSD and you have tons of medications and like, obviously that's not going to go well. So the Bible gives a lot of really good lessons on how we're responsible with our time. And so as we have these classes, those classes are given to them through an instructor sharing their personal story, so that we teach them how to teach through sharing their personal testimony and weaving it in with the lesson plan. And then they go through that class and they break out together with their group, and their group will have the team leader who's graduated our leadership program, once was a student, a guy that just is in our leadership program, and then 4 or 5 guys that are brand new. And they'll work through that together and what that looks like in their everyday life. What does managing your time look like in my life? Am I late for everything? Am I filling my plate up? Am I lazy? Do I have like 24 hours a day and I'm doing nothing? Like they'll talk about that in their personal life and how they could apply it and help come up with a plan. Throughout that week, they build a plan of how they live their life moving forward, and they build accountability and trust in their team members, and they walk away with not just a plan, but a team to navigate moving forward with. And then some of those guys will go home and just exercise that plan. Some of them go home and be part of our 100 outposts we have around the country and our 1,000 partner outposts we have around the country and whatever the community in. And some of them will come back and enter our leadership program to pay it forward. So everyone kind of takes it differently moving forward from there.
How many folks have gone through the program at Sky Rose?
We've had about 7,000 go through that program. We've had 500,000 go through our resiliency program at basis. We had about 7,000 go through our legacy program. And of those 7,000, 60% of them, so about 4,000 of those have been at Sky Rose.
Wow. And
by the way, like, no one pays for anything. There's no cost to go there. We even pay for travel. So we pay for the airfare, everything, 100%. It's about $7 million a year in programming.
That's amazing. But it's such a remarkable program. And I know that Wayne has mentioned before that of those who've gone through the program, I think you've maybe only lost one.
Yeah, as of now, in the 15 years we've been doing it, we're at 3 out of 7,000. And you have to consider we're dealing with very high risk as well. This is not a normal demographic. And so, yeah, we're unfortunately, we're at 3. Now, the number that I hate to say that I'm not proud of is we've had probably more than 24 that have died on our waiting list, pending coming. And so that's something our team has really tried to be more aware of, like, as someone applies the imminent state they're in before they get to a place like Sky Rose. Because we're not a 911, right? We're, that's what the VA suicide hotline's for that. Nonetheless, we want to be able to get them in as fast as possible. If we could really understand how imminent it is for them, then we could try to work to get them in faster. Right now, currently, because the program has been so successful, we have 2,000 on a waiting list. We're getting about 250 to 300 applications per month right now.
Wow.
So,
but those numbers, Chad, though, tell the story of how successful the program is.
It does. I mean, it tells a terrible story about how bad the need is, but it also tells a really story that makes me proud of that. In the need, they're coming to us because what we're offering is a very real, viable solution through helping these men and women align their lives with to live in their lives the way I believe they were created to live.
Of those that have gone through, are there any stories that stand out to you as just the really remarkable, huge transformation story that just would really touch on how successful what you're doing is?
Yeah. So I'd say a really, really great example is a guy named Reed Hasty in this Marine named Pete. Reed was an Army soldier, and Pete was this Marine. A lot of the people that come to Mighty Oaks are because I'm out speaking, right? I speak in churches, I speak corporate events, I speak on bases. And so I was in this probably close to 9 years ago now. I was in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, speaking at the Assembly Church in Broken Arrow. And I taught I still do jiu-jitsu, right? So I taught a jiu-jitsu seminar on a Saturday, and then a Sunday I spoke at the church. I went to this jiu-jitsu seminar, and I met a Army soldier named Reed Hasty. And Reed was there, and I invited all the veterans there. Hey, I'm going to be speaking at church tomorrow. Love you guys to come. And so Reed came. Reed was an Army combat engineer who had been in Iraq, and jiu-jitsu, like me, would end up being a place he landed, but most weeks he'd end up in the VA psych ward. He was going almost like 2 or 3 times a month. He'd end up in the VA psych ward because of panic attacks. And he always talked about, I never forget, like, him sharing, when he first started sharing his story, was how humiliating it was to have been a sergeant in the Army responsible for millions of dollars in equipment and men in combat. And now he's home and he gets put in the VA psych ward, once a week or, 2 or 3 times a month. He's behind a thick glass and can't even be trusted with his shoelaces. Like, how humiliating that was for him. And he just wanted help. And this mats and jiu-jitsu were a good place for him, but he wasn't actually finding healing. And so he came to hear me speak. And immediately he was like, what's coming? While I was speaking, I got to say this. While I was speaking, everywhere I speak, I'll stand on that end of that pulpit at the end and I'll tell my story. And I'll hold up that Mighty Oaks flyer and I'll make the invitation to them to come to Sky Rose or our program, right? And let them know there's no strings attached. It's free. Like, if you're struggling, and from where I stand on the pulpit, you always see his wives like nudging their husband, Like, that's you. And it was a woman, Heather, and a Marine named Pete. And Heather said she gave him that nudge. And Pete said, he's a Marine diagnosed with PTSD. He's like, I can't. I don't want to take that spot from someone else. All the excuses people give not to get help. And so he didn't come. And he chose not to come. And about a few months later, I got a call from Pastor Ron Woods of that church. And he told me what happened. He said that Pete had stood in back of a pickup truck surrounded by police. He had a pistol in his hand. And the last thing he said was, tell my wife I love her and I'm doing this for her. And he put the gun in his head and he pulled the trigger and killed himself. And he said, Heather, his wife, would love you and Kathy to come out and talk to her. So we got on a plane, we flew out, went and talked, met with her. And she had heard me speak that time when I was at the church, right? And she's like, she just wanted me to know that Pete's last words were not comforting to her and that it was a complete lie. Tell my wife I love her. I'm doing this for her. She wanted to make it known, like, he didn't do this for me. Like, I went to the morgue and they said, you can't see him because he has a gunshot wound to the head. You can't see your husband. And she said, I'm going to see my husband, because she couldn't believe it. And how she went there with a gunshot wound to the head, still couldn't believe it, put her head on his chest while he laid on a metal table because she still wanted to hear there wasn't a heartbeat. And how, like, she called the mom from there, his mom and Pete's mom, and how his mom screamed it would never be the same. She's like going home to her house and needing and being in such pain, needing her husband's comfort, but her husband wasn't there because he had killed himself. And that dichotomy of that, like, and then she said something that stuck out with me and it convicted me, deeply convicted me. She said, Pete thought when he killed himself, he was taking away the pain, but all he did was transfer that pain to everyone who loved him. And I want to go to Sky Rose Ranch and I want to talk to other warriors who in the same spot Pete was in to tell them the other side of the story. And so for years afterwards, after Pete dying, she came to Sky Rose Ranch and she would talk to those warriors and share that story. I mean, I seen like tough infantry dudes, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, 4th Recon Marines sit there in front of this little 5'2" blonde hair girl when she told that story, and they literally couldn't even stand being in front of her. They'd run out the back of that room on Sky Rose because they couldn't stand being in front of her, because it's so convicting to hear the other side of the story of guys that were in suicide ideations at that time. And I know she saved so many lives. But back to standing on that pulpit, when Pete didn't accept that invitation to come to Mighty Oaks, Reed Hasty did. Reed Hasty, who had been at the Jiu-Jitsu seminar, came to that church, heard that story. I made that invitation, and Reed came up to me after that church and said, I mean, he didn't know Pete, but he said he wanted to come. But his panic attacks were so bad, just to get him on a plane from Oklahoma to San Luis Obispo to Sky Rose Ranch, it was like it took a couple of months to get him, and we had to drug him. He had to take a sedative to get him there. And so we get him there to Sky Rose, and he gets up there and stands on that back patio that you've been on, overlooking, San Luis Obispo and overlooking San Miguel and Paso Robles, and just got a beautiful view right there all at the coast. He stood on that patio and he surrendered his life to Christ and became a completely changed human being. And Reed Hasty in that moment said, I want to come back and I want to be an instructor. And so he came back to our leadership program, and not only did he become an instructor, but he's taught more programs than anyone. In fact, he's taught close to 100 programs now. And then years later, 8 years later, I'm going to Ukraine to do some rescue operations in Ukraine. And a lot of guys I was taking were guys from Mighty Oaks who had been teaching and doing well, but they were mostly special operations guys. And Reed was a combat engineer. He drove a bulldozer, which is Admiral, by the way, drove a bulldozer in combat building forward operating bases before the gunfighters got there. But he's like, I want to go. And I thought about like his story. I mean, think about it. Like, he couldn't fly from from Oklahoma to San Luis Obispo. And now he wants me to fly him into Ukraine with me, with a bunch of special operations dudes, and go into Russian occupied territory to help people. And I thought about it, and I was like, I just felt like I had to take him. And so this guy, again, that couldn't fly from Oklahoma to California, flies and meets me in Houston. We get in a plane and we fly around the world and land at Krakow, Poland. We get in a car and we drive across the border into Ukraine. By the way, everyone's coming out of Ukraine. We're going in, and we drive 18 hours across the country into the Russian occupied territory. I remember going through Kharkiv that night. When you're going through Kharkiv, it's blown out like rubble, and the lights are out. If you turn a light on, you're getting rocketed. So we're quiet rolling through, and one of the Ukrainian guys comes over the radio, and he's like, it's so eerie. He's like, welcome to Kharkiv. The only thing that lives here is Will Smith and his dog. If you've seen the movie I Am Legend, this is an apocalyptic movie. It was just so setting. And we end up in a safe house that night, and we get rocketed that night. Our building gets hit with a rocket, and I wake up and Reed's just cool as a cucumber. The same guy that was going to the psych wards because of PTSD, totally cool as a cucumber. And the next day we go out to this forward operating base where these Ukrainian soldiers are living in literally like World War II mud trenches. That's how they're living. And they just so happen to be combat engineers, the same job as Reed. And so all of our guys didn't have that like-minded job experience. So we're like, hey, let's let Reed talk to these guys. I remember standing there, like a couple of hundred Ukrainian soldiers come around Reed, and he's sharing his testimony. And it was like this such surreal moment for me of the full circle of what happened, what God does at Mighty Oaks. Because this guy, again, that couldn't go from Oklahoma to California, is in a frontline war zone in Ukraine with his peers, combat engineers, living in mud trenches. Their buddies are dying every day. Like we were where they were fighting. He pulls up a stool and he starts staring his testimony of what God had done in his life. And I had like tears coming from my eyes. I'm like, the full circle of what happens when men come to that ranch, and what he was able to do with that, like for other people, not for himself, not just to get well, but to pay that forward at that level. And it just, for me, it was like a gift to watch that full circle transpire. And I couldn't help but think, like, in that moment, like, what if Pete, when Reed said yes and Pete said no, what if Pete would have said yes and came as well? Would he be there with us? Would he be there with us? And I thought of this quote by, I think Charles Spurgeon said it. It says, how precious must a human soul be that both God and the devil fight over it every day. And they do for all of us, right? The God and devil fight for our soul every day. And the reason they fight over it is because of the contrast of Pete and Reed. When the devil wins and gets your soul, you get no fruit out of that life like Pete. But when God wins and rescues our soul and puts us into his purpose, hundreds, if not thousands of people's lives have been saved and impacted and changed forever because of Reed Hasty made a decision to go to Sky Rose Ranch and give his life to Christ and live the life he was created to live. That's the power of what happens at that ranch through Mighty Oaks.
What role do you think the ranch itself and that environment plays in the healing? You know, that open space, just being out there on such a landscape. What role do you think that plays in the healing?
It's huge. I mean, it's environment's everything. I mean, if we took that same program and did a conference at a hotel in downtown Houston, it just wouldn't be the same, right? You're walking in out of, you wake up from your hotel room, you go down and get your hotel breakfast, you go to a conference center, you're in a big conference room with a bunch of people, you have a presenter, and then you go get, a loud lunch and now you're off at the end of the day. Maybe you have access to go out in town. You're on your cell phone the whole time. Or you're at Sky Rose. You wake up to the sun. The sun coming across the western front of that ranch, and you go out in that back patio, and all you hear is the birds. You're watching the fog roll back down off of that hill. And you're completely surrounded by creation and nature, and the walls come down, and you sit down behind that table, and you get that breakfast by Kenny and his family, and man, like I tell guys, like you're gonna get your soul restored, and you're gonna get about 15 pounds of weight that week because you're gonna eat good, and there's something about that ranch. Wayne, that's what I said earlier. Wayne says like this: there's an open door to heaven above that ranch, and I truly believe that. When every time I go there, I have a stressful job. Doing this is a stressful job. Like I go there and I just feel like immediately I pull in that property and I just like the weight is gone, like the weight's gone, and I have the sneak peek and the behind the curtain privilege of knowing how special that place is and the miracles that have taken place there. But it refreshes my soul, right? Psalm 23 starts off with, the Lord's my shepherd. We lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside quiet waters, and he refreshes my soul. That's talking about nature, right? Puts us in green pastures, leads us beside still waters, and refreshes our soul. Like we're meant to be in those environments to have our soul refreshed and unplugged from everything else. And that's where God does his best work.
Now that you've accomplished so much with establishing this program, the Mighty Oaks across the country, what are your goals going forward? Where do you see the program going? Well, I mean,
we have a responsibility because we created a tremendous demand. I mean, we built this huge demand of influx of people, like there's bases around the world calling us to do resiliency programs. As we have 2,000 applications, is growing. We have 250 to 300 applications a month coming in. So we have a responsibility my job is to raise more money and to let more people know about the program. So I'm bringing in money. I'm bringing in applications. I'm out of the organizational structure now. I think every organization's reached a point when the founder has done his role as managing the organization. It has to be a founder. And so I kind of function as a founder in relationships, raising funds, speaking. I do the resiliency talks, but I'm outside the organizational structure and making sure the message goes out there as far and wide as it can, that regardless of where you are, there is hope, there is healing, there's a path, and they can apply at Mighty Oaks with no strings attached. So I have to do all those things. And so for me, that's my job and responsibility. We are building our global headquarters right now in Texas. That's where the global headquarters is going to be. And so we have a big fundraising campaign right now to try to get that building built out and get that headquarters established. Our team could be able to focus on doing their job and making sure that we have everything in place. So that's happening right now. Outside of Mighty Oaks, I have a podcast called The Resilient Show, and we bring on a lot of warriors. There's a lot of different guests that come on, but a lot of them are warriors sharing their story. And that for me creates a big audience of warriors. And so it's a great broadcast outlet for Mighty Oaks to be able to expand that net to get more applications in and bring people into the pipeline to come to Mighty Oaks. And so it's very strategic for me to do that. I do a lot of media stuff and write a lot of books. I love doing all that stuff, but a big part of doing it all is the outreach side of it is tied into everything I do.
When you look for more locations like Sky Rose, are you looking for similar ranches like that, landowners that are like Wayne that are so supportive of what you're doing? How does that effort?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely learned from Sky Rose that is the environment. That's a crucial piece to the program. If we got asked to do a program, like I said, in downtown Houston at a conference center, we wouldn't do that because we have a responsibility. You got to think when someone comes to a place like Mighty Oaks, that may be their last. We've had so many people say, I came here knowing that if this didn't work this week, I was going home and sticking a pistol in my mouth. That's the business we're in. So we have a tremendous responsibility that if we're going to engage in this work, that we're going to do it well. We're going to do the very best. And so knowing what we know, that the environment is a crucial piece, it would be not only irresponsible, but highly reckless for us to inject someone in an environment we know that is not the most conducive to their healing. And so that is a criteria for us at this point that we wouldn't compromise on.
Well, there's a shared vision between land conservation and human restoration. And we see it just with folks that aren't veterans, that haven't gone through the immense pressures and experiences that your folks have gone through. But even with folks without that, see that being out there on these lands and the healing powers of them, that partnership, when we can demonstrate that the land, we take care of the land, it takes care of us too. And I think that's what you're seeing and as a result of the folks that have gone through your program.
Yeah, and this is a big part of Wayne's vision was, when I first talked to him and started to understand his heart behind Sky Rose, he's been very intentional about preserving that land around that area because, better than I do. I'm kind of speaking on my butt on this topic. I mean, there's a lot of people that would love to go buy up that land and change that environment from what it is now to something a lot less conservation focused. And so I know Wayne has been a big part of like buying up the land to protect it and preserve it. And so I'm thankful that our philanthropy people like Wayne out there that's willing to do that.
Chad, where can people find out more about you?
I kind of have a landing page website, chadrobyshow.com. And so all the things I'm involved in, including Mighty Oaks, is all kind of landing page of that. And then, my Instagram is where I'm most active at on social media. And you can just put Chad Roby Show and probably the bigger account that I think I got like 300 something thousand followers there. So we got a pretty active audience there. I encourage people to listen to my podcast. If you want to hear some great warrior stories, The Resilience Show. Again, all that's on the landing page of chadrobyshow.com. I got a lot of great things coming up. We got TV. We got a veteran focused, special operations focused mystery conspiracy show coming out on I can't say it, but a major television network. So it'll be 8 episodes. Season 1 coming out soon. My book, Saving Aziz, is being made in a motion picture film, which Aziz has been out at Sky Rose Ranch. For those that don't know, Aziz was my interpreter in Afghanistan. Did 8 deployments with him, and during the 2021 evacuation of Afghanistan or withdrawal of Afghanistan, I actually Wayne was the initial funder of it to go rescue my friend Aziz, his wife and 6 kids, and then God opened up this tremendous opportunity for me and a small team of 12 other special operations guys to not only rescue Aziz's family, but we rescued 17,000 people. And it was just God orchestrated miracle, said to be the largest civilian evacuation in American history. We wrote Saving Aziz, which ended up being a USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestseller, and is being made in a motion picture film. So that's coming out soon.
Oh, great.
And Aziz and Wayne's worked with Aziz on this. Aziz is we brought a number of Afghan interpreters to Sky Rose Ranch. They come to America, they served by our country for so long, and they came out here and brand new in America, and they don't have a VA that they could go to. They don't have access to support and help. And so Aziz and Wayne talked, and we put together a program, and we've had, I think, 5 programs now that we brought Afghan interpreters to Sky Rose Ranch. And
how's that been for them?
Phenomenal. I mean, it's been, especially with the, cultural, religious ideology. It's still run as a Christian program, and most of them are Muslims. So they're getting loved on. The Muslim church has totally rejected these interpreters when they came here. It's been the Christian churches and communities that have opened up to their arms to them. So it's just showing the love of God to them. And Kenny, hard to not, like, Kenny goes there and it's hard to not be, feel Kenny's love. So they've just all loved the experience. I think most of them have left with Bibles, and we've had many baptisms and conversions there, which is, we kind of said it from the beginning. It wasn't going to be an aggressive evangelistic approach. We're just going to love them and let God do what God does. That's what we've done. And, but they served alongside of our troops for, like Aziz. He did 16 years of special operations. He did 8 deployments with me. He saved my life multiple times. I had a life debt to go back and get him. And now he's here and he wants to help them. And we're just, they don't have access to the VA. Our government's not set up that way. So they don't have anything anywhere. We expect them to come here and assimilate, but there's no care for them. And you think, I did 8 deployments, but it wasn't in my backyard. It wasn't when my family was at risk. It wasn't for 20 years straight, right? They need help. And so, man, hats off to Wayne. Wayne stepped up right away and said, hey, no one else is going to do this. We'll do it.
Wow.
And we did it at Sky Rose.
That's pretty darn special.
Yeah, it's been special.
What do you hope that folks listening today take out of this episode?
I mean, especially your audience, to know that, land conservation is just, we live in such a beautiful country. I've been all over the world. America is just so special. Some of the most beautiful places in America, though, have been ruined by people. Some of my favorite places in this country are like, you go and it's just infested with people and concrete. And, just to preserve our outdoors, preserve our space, and so we can enjoy them. Our kids and grandkids can enjoy them, and we can use them for what they were intended to do: to enjoy nature, enjoy God's creation, and use those places to do something special. And that's what Sky Rose has been for us. It's been a place that's been preserved and set apart to do something special. And through the years, we've been able to bring thousands and thousands of men and women there to literally save lives and restore families and change legacies for eternity. And if it wasn't for people that cared about the conservation side of that land, we wouldn't have it. And so Wayne's been a big part of that, but I know you guys have too. And so I just hope people take away how important it is, because you only have so much time and you only have so much real estate. You could use it up, and you could use it up unwisely.
Chad, thank you for those words. And of course, from the bottom of all of our hearts, thank you and your family and everyone who's gone through your program for their service and dedication to this country. We wouldn't have this opportunity if it wasn't for all of you. And it means so much to us, and not just for the service that you all performed, but for the program that you have put together, the Mighty Oaks, and the success and the lives you're saving and the healing. It's remarkable, and many times probably miraculous. But thank you for everything that you're doing, you have done, and will continue to do with these programs.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for doing this and highlighting Sky Rose like this.
Oh, it's the least we can do. We're very proud of the program and very proud of what the land has been able to provide. And we appreciate immensely you taking the time out of your immensely busy schedule to spend some time with us today and share this experience.
Absolutely.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation with Chad. If you'd like to learn more about the Mighty Oaks Foundation or how you can support their mission, visit mightyoaksprograms.org. As November 11th is Veterans Day each year, and we want to take a moment to extend our deepest gratitude to the men and women who have served our country and defended our freedom. Your courage, sacrifice, and dedication inspire all of us at the Rangeland Trust. A huge, huge thank you. Well, that closes the gate on another episode of Tune Into the Land. We want to remind you that your feedback matters, so please share your thoughts by leaving a comment or a review. Let us know what you enjoyed, what topics you'd like us to dig into, and your suggestions for future guests. Don't forget to hit that follow button and to ensure that you're notified when the next episode drops. Thank you for listening, and until next time.